Hello, we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome to week 78 of Supercharge Fridays. If we haven't met, my name is Sonal. I'm a career strategist and founder of Supercharge. And we've been going live, as you can see, for nearly 80 weeks now. And we talk about different topics. So, firstly, I hope you guys are well, wherever you are. Comment in the comments, put a little like, it means a lot. And the algorithm likes you even more and likes us even more, and more people can hear about what we're talking about. And we have a juicy topic which is related to resumes. And before we get there, quick shout out to all my friends and viewers in Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, who are impacted with by the floods. It's a sad situation. There's been fatalities. So lots of thoughts with you. And I also know that internet has been, this is a lot less problem, much less problem. Our internet connectivity has been impacted severely. So let me know in the comments that you can see and hear properly and not like those little squares. And yeah, with that said, we're going to talk about resumes today. Resumes are one of those topics which, funnily enough, can get most people very worked up, right? And I already had a session about resumes back in January with Virginia Franco, who's this lovely person in the United States, and she's a leading resume writer. And it's one of those topics I feel like you can learn more and more, right? So I highly recommend you go after this. If you're watching live, go and watch the replay with Virginia as well. If you haven't already done so, you will learn heck of a lot. And a quick shout out, because I also have a monthly newsletter and I always have one little juicy tip about resumes and one tip of the month for interviews. So go and subscribe there as well. You'll definitely find something of use there. So with that said, I am so excited to welcome my new friend on LinkedIn. I don't know where else. Where else are you guys? Let me know where you go, because I don't go anywhere. Because of the lockdown, all the new people are always on LinkedIn. So I'm very excited to welcome Erica Reckamp to Supercharge Fridays. Thank you so much for being here, Erica.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Okay, awesome. Can't wait to dig into the topic. But before we do that, so for anyone who hasn't met you before or is not familiar with your work, Erica, tell us a juicy little backstory on how you got started writing resumes of all things.
Sure thing. So I actually started out in my studies studying Nigerian praise poetry, which was so exciting. It was people basically going out on the street and saying these wonderful things about their society, building people up. And I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. And then I thought, well, I actually need to make money.
Did you say Nigerian poetry?
Nigerian praise poetry. Yeah.
Nigerian praise poetry. I honestly did not expect you to say that, of all the things in the wild world. That is amazing.
Well, and that's my educational background. So then when I transitioned to the corporate world, I loved that it would the Nigerian praise poetry, it builds people up to do bigger and better things and empowers people. There's that sense of social responsibility. And I just found that so wonderful and just glorious. So then when I'm looking for writing roles and needing to feed myself, I stumbled upon an ad, and it was for executive outplacement writer. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it. Went in, I fell in love with it because it's the same thing. It's me writing people's proudest professional moments to empower them to be better, do better, and just grasp those opportunities and run with them. So fell in love with it, been doing it for, years. And I hope I never stop. So
I hope you never stop either. So that's amazing. I mean, guys, put this in the comments. Did you, of all the things in the world, expect someone who looks like Erica to talk about Nigerian praise poetry? First of all, I'm going to Google that. I didn't know that thing exists. So awesome. I'm so happy you're here. So now we're going to get cracking into our topic with the origin of the Nigerian praise poetry, who happens to be really good at what she does, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have had her on Supercharge Fridays. I'm very picky about people I have on here, people who've proved their mettle. And Erica, before we get started, a quick tip for anyone listening today, watching us today. You started, you and I were joking. You said, when it comes to LinkedIn, I feel like I've been living in a cave for the longest time. And I came out and I'm like, wow, look at this place on LinkedIn. Look at all my colleagues, and they write lovely stuff. I'm going to start. And I think you started like February, March, something like that.
yeah,
Very
it hasn't been
regularly.
that long.
Not that long, and you're doing like, your work is getting seen a lot. So a quick, like, one tip for someone who's not yet on LinkedIn on a regular basis like you, but wants to take the leap, what would you say to that person?
Oh, yeah, it's so enjoyable. I think if you find content that you like and just start commenting on it and
Yeah.
viewing it as a conversation,
Yeah.
it's so incredibly rewarding. And that naturally, I think, transitions into like, well, I'll just put a post out there and my new friends will kind of join in the conversation slowly. And it's not going to happen, even maybe within the first few weeks, but they'll start to chime in and you'll start to have these really interesting conversations that then people who happen to stumble upon your content get to benefit from. So the rewards keep multiplying.
The rewards keep multiplying. And quick shout out to Virginia, who was live with me in January. It's so great that you're watching. I know you're on summer vacation. Oh, by the way, can I please have everyone watching give us, if you're watching on YouTube, give like, but if you're on LinkedIn, I need to hear the applause. It's 7 in the morning in Chicago for Erica, and she's doing this with the goodness of her heart. Please, let's give her a little bit of acknowledgement for that. So, all right, so we're gonna get cracking when it comes to our resumes, right? And we're not going to promise that we're going to be like solving all your resume problems, but at the end of the day, the resume is supposed to get you the interview, right? I'm not going to say it out loud in case I get banned on LinkedIn. So it's not one of those things like, oh, resume is like this silver bullet and it's like this magic thing and it's going to give me a job. It's going to get you an interview. And the better the resume, the better the chance of being called for an interview. So with that said, first of all, highly recommend that you follow Erica on LinkedIn if you don't already. And you have a very cool sounding website, jobsearchlikeapro.com. Love it. So if you're interested in Erica, like getting in touch with her and finding out about her services, feel free to check out her website. So Erica, talk to this person who's watching right now. We have folks from around the world. It's so nice that you guys are joining us. There is going to be this one person who's watching, and I see you. I see you. You're overwhelmed. You're like, I know I need to do this. I don't know how to get started. And that topic alone, Erica, can take us like half a day.
Right.
But in a few minutes, help this person who's feeling overwhelmed on how to get started.
All right. Well, I like to start with the skeleton, right? Just fill in the company, the city, state, your title, your tenure length. Bump down, fill in your education, your technical skills, your professional organizations, kind of get that framework set up. Yeah. So then even if you need to take a break and you come back, you feel like, well, I got the bulk of it started. I know I have an outline there. Then you can slowly start building out the education. Now it's easier, the experience. It won't take as much time as you think because you really only need to focus on the most recent 10 to 15 years because hiring executives are most concerned with what have you done lately. So it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time on something that you did 20 years ago. You don't have to be kind of pulling out, researching metrics. Don't spend a lot of time there. So spend your time on those most recent 10 to 15 years. Just do a couple lines on scope to give it context or to help populate some of those keywords in there, and then go into your bulleted accomplishments with the numbers, dollars, percents. Estimate if you need to. You don't need to spend a ton of time digging through reports. It's okay to say approximately or an estimated this much, this percent. That's okay. And you can use the CAR, SAR, SOAR, any sort of framework to keep those accomplishments focused, concise.
Erica, sorry, just a quick interruption. I'm loving everything. A quick thing for someone who doesn't know cars, so like just tell us what that framework is.
Sure. So like anything that you Google for keeping those accomplishments concise, it could be circumstances, action, results. They have SARS, scenario, action, results, or sometimes they'll do situation.
Like living during a pandemic, when I hear SARS, it just makes my antenna go up. So that's why I'm like,
fair enough.
Like we're talking about the same thing. Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah. Not that one.
Not that one. No. Okay. Okay. So
and then lastly, you want to go to the summary because that's the thing that's really going to catch people's attention. And it's going to be the most like you have to actually be a little more creative about it. So that one, make sure you've got your target title up top, decode that job description to find those keywords, hard skills, soft skills. echo some of the phrasing in there, and then try to kind of discern what sort of EQ, emotional quotient they're looking for, what kind of character they're looking for to fulfill that role. Because if you can kind of glean that, like, are they looking for somebody who's going to be deadline oriented to get the team to finish their projects on time? Are they looking for somebody who actually has communication skills, like while all the engineers are coding in a corner, not making eye contact? You can usually find out by reading between the lines what type of personality they're looking for, what type of soft skills they need for this particular role. If you can mention that and speak to that within the summary, also huge win.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So, quick recap, and I'm going to see we have quite a few questions already. We're going to get to you guys, but just a quick recap. Start with the skeleton. You can't go wrong with that. Right? Don't start thinking about the meat and the flesh of it. It's very overwhelming.
Get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and bloody. So just like basic bones, basic structure. That's your foundation of your building. We're using so many metaphors here, so hopefully you get the picture. The second thing which I love that you said was focus on the last 15-20 years. There's something called recency bias. We ourselves and also people remember the most recent thing we did. If the recent thing you did you're not particularly proud of, doesn't matter. Focus on the accomplishments and move on. And if the thing you're really proud of was more than 20 years ago, still highlight it.
You can put it, in a key accomplishments section under the summary. You can put 3 accomplishments there. Yeah, even if it's been dated and you need to remove those dates to avoid age discrimination, you can still pull that up.
You
Absolutely.
Can still pull that up.
Good point.
Yeah, and you'll have people say different things. I mean, Erica will have opinions on this. Some people will say, remove those dates from far back. It's going to date you. It's going to make you look older than you are. Some people will say, heck, keep it. Let them see you for who you are. And if they don't want you because of your age, then they're not right for you. And by the way, if you don't write your graduation year, then they already know that you're doing that. So you're old. Doesn't matter. You do what feels right to you. But I like that you said, don't go crazy with you're not going to get audited like 2.3% increase and like no one cares, right? So just take a chill pill when it comes to details. You don't lie, obviously, never lie,
right.
but don't have to be like accurate to the last decimal.
It should be a justifiable number. You should explain how you arrived to that number, because even if a lot of people don't have access to some of these metrics, I'll encourage them to use the percent increase or percent decrease calculator and just take before and after numbers, which you can just Google that online, and to figure out those numbers. But then you need to explain how you arrived at that number, especially if they are going to do a background check, talk to your previous boss. You got to be able to justify it.
The explaining will happen in the interview. Just make sure everything you've got in there, you can back it up, right? Obviously,
and you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. So did I miss anything in the 3 steps that you talked about?
No, I think you're good. The summary was the last thing that we discussed, but
yes. The summary, I completely agree with you. When I start with a client and the summary is the first thing I write, I get overwhelmed with their experience. But when it's the last thing, everyone's different, right? Do what you prefer. If you want less overwhelm, I don't know who doesn't. Start with the summary later. Don't start with it. So Erica, just a quick question. You can't hear. Can you hear? I have lots of planes above me.
Suddenly. I can't hear that. No.
Okay, I think they're preparing in Belgium for our national day. So I'm hearing non-stop planes above me. I'm glad you can't hear it. All right. So this was a great answer. So anyone who's overwhelmed, hopefully you're feeling less overwhelmed. Go and watch the replay. We're live right now. Oh, by the way, if you guys are watching this in the replay later, write #replay so I know when I can say hi. And in the replay, listen to what Erica said, because everything she said has some bullet points. I'm thinking bullet points because our resumes are always good when it comes to bullet points. All right. The other debate, which is, no, not this one. Sorry. No, I missed it. I'm going to write it down. Length, size matters, doesn't matter. You'll have like hot debates on this, right?
Right.
So the best and most diplomatic person will say, it depends,
Right.
But you have rules, right, Erica, for this, and share in your head, what is your standard for that?
So I actually prefer 2 to 3 pages. So, and here's why. Even though a recruiter might prefer one page, or you'd be less worried about misplacing a page if it actually gets printed, you really can't fit substantive content into one page without it shrinking into this illegible, tiny font, and it's really difficult to digest. So I would much rather experience this well-spaced and built out content, right? So you don't want to cull it down so much that you don't have enough keywords or you're not providing context also. So even for recent grads, there are usually opportunities to either list course topics as functional keywords. So for example, you wouldn't say like English 101, you would say professional writing and substantive editing, right? Because then that would get you some keyword hits, even though it was a coursework topic. You can build out your key qualifications. Even if you don't have corporate experience, you perhaps have it in project work or have it in instances when you were shadowing someone. So there's still usually, most often, even recent grads, there are probably 2 pages worth of content there that's worth discussing.
No, it is worth discussing. And we talked about the skeleton and then the meat. You don't want such little meat that it's actually just like skinny and it's mostly skin and bones. You want
There's
some.
nothing to talk about.
There's
Yeah.
nothing to talk about. No, that's true. That's a good point. So I tend to think, Erica, for people, and this is maybe a bit extreme, for people with 0 to about 7 to 10 years experience, I tend to think one page. And when they have up to 22, and really senior CEOs, 30, 40 years experience, 3, maybe 4 max. Like 4 is rare, but 3.
Right.
What do you
It's a
think
pretty
of this
long
sort of
CV.
slab?
Going to 4. I mean, that's a lot of content. I still like 2 to 3, even if somebody has, like I said, if somebody had no experience and they had no educational background and they're seriously just walking in off the street and saying, I would like to, start in this warehouse, or I would like to start in this office and do some office work, then maybe one page. But most often, even if it is a recent grad, we have projects we can talk about that are on target with the role. And it does expand to 2 pages.
And that's a question we see here. Oh, by the way, when you have a question, please write the word question in capitals, and it's related to the topic. We'll make sure we address it. I saw a question which was a little bit unrelated, related to salaries. I think it was Shaurya. Shaurya, please wait till we're finished, and we'll do our best to help you. But till then, I want to focus on the topic and not get distracted, because I get distracted very quickly. So when you're a fresh graduate and you don't have work experience, and she's done some campus work for an NGO, how can you add this? How can I add this on my CV? What do you think, Erica?
Absolutely. You can still do a key qualifications section under the summary and discuss those in like a broad functional manner. These are the things that I did. This was the project that I worked on, and maybe not necessarily align it with a specific role. And in that way, you're still able to showcase those skills. People spend the most time and attention on the first, like the top third of the first page, or even the top 2/3 of the first page, depending on, below the fold. So it's a really good idea, even if it's not aligned with a position, to get it front and center if it's most relevant to your target position.
Exactly. So hopefully that helps you, Anjali. And how many years back, Iris, we talked about 15, 20 years?
I do 10 to 15, the highlight.
10 to 15. The highlight.
Even 20 years, that's a long time ago, especially as we're getting more technical and, things phase out pretty quickly now. The world's moving so fast.
Yeah, it's hard to think 2001 was 20 years ago.
I know, right?
Then there's a question here from Vedya. I have a 5-page resume and I've shown accomplishments in my 12 working years. It's hard to get reduced. So Vedya, watch the replay, because this is exactly what Erica addressed. When you have 4 or 5, you don't have accomplishments, you have description. There's a difference very clear between description, like job description, and what you did that made a huge impact. Money, time, savings, reputation. What did you help the company? So I'm going to move on, because we have other questions here as well. We got folks from like all over. This is so amazing. Totally good vibes, you guys. Lovely to see you all here. And Then I saw we're gonna move on because I think I'll find other questions later. So we talked about size, we talked about length, we talked about the overwhelm. Now let's talk about personal branding when it comes to resumes. And branding is how people remember you. What do they think of you when they see your resume? And Erica, help us to be different from the rest of the pile.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing to figure out when you're honing in on that brand and wanting to stand out, not just as somebody who's offering a chronology or somebody who's filling out a template, you want to build your content organically and then figure out what structure will complement that well, rather than trying to cram your content into a template existing. It turns into like a Procrustean bed where you're cutting things out that shouldn't be cut, or you're lengthening things that shouldn't be lengthened, for example, the years back. So try to focus on that. Consider, what do people say about you when you leave the room? What do other people say? What do they ask you for specifically? Those are the things that you maybe want to highlight as your core strengths. And then again, bringing it back around to what you can offer to the hiring organization related to your target role. Making sure that, because a lot of people hope that the reader will connect the dots instead of just broadcasting loud and proud, I'm the best person for the role. This is exactly the role, and here's why. Making sure that resume is something that has talking points that pop out. So a lot of times I see people highlighting things like the tenure length, or they're bold facing the city and state. Mm-hmm. That's not what you're selling, right? Mm-hmm. We're not trying to get somebody excited about, Chicago, Illinois. We're trying to get somebody excited about exactly what you offer. So that's, you can establish candidacy by highlighting your titles if they're relevant. Otherwise, it's those accomplishments, pulling out those key phrases from the accomplishment, highlighting those, so that when they they're talking to you in person, they do the glance down to try to discover talking points within the interview, within the networking conversation. There's an immediate takeaway.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hopefully that helps you to make it pop. And I love what Erica said. What are you selling? You're not selling Chicago, no matter how proud you are of your city, like Mumbai. That's not what you're selling. You're selling you, your skills, your services, what you bring to the table. So, we got questions on length. So hopefully, if you guys are joining us late, go and definitely watch the replay. It'll help you. Ivan, I'm going to answer this quickly for you. In most parts of the world, people have strong opinions when it comes to your picture on your resume. In places like the Nordic countries and the United States, even the UK, it's heavily frowned upon. There are parts of continental Europe, it's perfectly all right. It's not a modeling job or a newsreader job. It's not a big deal. I like it. It helps the face with the name and discrimination. I don't get that concept because LinkedIn, hello.
They're going to find it anyway, right?
They're going to find you. And those same people tell you to please put a picture on your resume because you're actually, 9 times more profile views and 21 times more, or 9 times more connection requests and 21 times more profile views. So hello, it's definitely helpful. But follow the practice of the country that not you live in, but the country you want to work in. So if you want to work in the same country you're living in, that's fine. Good comments here from Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hello. And it's all about the numbers that you have access to, and Niatu as well, who's lovely. All these folks have been on Superchat Fridays, and they're really, really specialists in their field. And Niatu's like, don't worry, some good faith is good enough. It's better than nothing. And our friend here, Sajid in Toronto, is asking us about this. Love this question. Word doc, resume, LinkedIn profile, website, which is like a lot more dynamic, right? And now with technology and youngsters entering the workforce, there's going to be strong opinions on it. Do you rank them, Erica, in a certain order?
So they're all good for different things. I do think the resume still is relevant and crucial. It's still expected. And that is most often professionally referenced, right? Like if you are going in a room and talking to people, they're probably not pulling up your resume to talk to you. Or a website to talk to you. They probably actually have your resume in hand. The LinkedIn profile, it will get traction. It will get attention. 98% of companies admit to doing that, to finding it. And it's usually
98.
the first stop. Yeah,
Mhm.
98% of Fortune 500 companies and 92% of general companies admit to it, but they're doing it, right? Any sort of background check, that's the first hit. That's the first thing they're looking at. Then they go on to the other socials. So it is best practices absolutely to have a LinkedIn profile and to give it attention, right? They're living documents. The resume and LinkedIn are living documents. They should be updated continuously, repeatedly, to be fresh. And then it's also not a red flag if you are kind of networking and currently employed. The website is a totally different beast. They can be very helpful to establish you, especially if you are looking to kind of build your credibility. You do have to be careful because a website you can't customize as easily, right? So if you are kind of targeting different types of roles, you got to be careful about that. The other thing is posting. LinkedIn is very brief, very concise. It doesn't build out as much as a resume might, because reading online is very different from reading in print. So there's still a reason if somebody views your LinkedIn profile for them to ask for a resume. If you provide your resume, if you attach it as in your feature section on LinkedIn, or if you post your resume on a website, people have less of a reason to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So
that's a bad thing. The more human interaction, the better. Yeah. The more rapport we're building, the more connection, the more likely they are to actually hire you.
Yeah. Sajid, I think I just want to say that I think when you start with a resume and you make it, doing a LinkedIn profile or a website or a portfolio is so much easier because I feel, again, the foundation is in place, and there's less guesswork. So related to that question, our friend Jeff in Ohio is asking about the future. What do you think? Like quick, 60-second look into the crystal ball, and what do you think?
I do think I'm wondering more about hyperlinked things where they can access it, they can build out to the portfolio, they can link out to the website, that it's all kind of self-contained. And we see a little bit of that, but right now it's all fragmented, right? So even if they are, data mining and combing, TikTok or your presentations from grad school, especially trying to find DEI candidates, they're doing this. It's very fragmented. So I'd love to see it if it was more streamlined in that way, that they could access that. But we'll see. I mean, people like the videos, but they're really hard to reference later, right? Getting to that exact point where somebody said something you're interested, as opposed to doing that in a document, you can quickly scan and find it. So I still think there will be some print component.
I think, Jeff, it's a trend. Your guess is as good as Erica's or as good as mine when it comes to other tech. Sure, I don't know if it's here to stay though, and I think only time will tell about that. So Shivam is asking, I have about 10 years experience. My role for the first 5 years is different from the last 5 years, and now I'm targeting a role which is aligned with my, the first set of 5 years. And how can he approach this?
So I think this is where the key qualifications or the key accomplishments section under the summary becomes very important. Mm-hmm. So if you've got your positioning, you're setting yourself up, you're branding yourself as whatever you were doing 5 years ago. I'm a this professional, and then building out that experience, doing the key accomplishments, key qualifications, putting a couple highlighted topics there. Then kind of go into the experience. It's going to be down further to the bottom of the first page, maybe even the second page by the time it kind of is apparent that, oh, you were only doing this, 5 years ago. The other thing you can do is make sure any recent training, professional organizations, focus on your new target, even joining a couple LinkedIn groups, focusing on your new target to make it clear to them this is actually where you want to be. Because that's usually the concern is, well, they already changed once. Are they going to change again? Do they really want to stick with this? Or are they just kind of following a lead? So make it clear to them, so that you're a good ROI in that regard.
Yes. And Shivam, and I think this equally applies to you, Nilanchi. You want to get to do something and you don't have experience in it. Doesn't matter. There will be pockets that you can pick out. And what Erica is saying is, firstly, I forgot to say this. I love that you said it's a living breathing document. You got to update it. And those who are listening are like, oh, this is great. I don't have a resume. I don't need it. I'm so happy I'm employed. Sure. One day you will. So just once, I know people who say once a year when they finish their performance appraisal, it's a very good practice to just go and update it, because when
Just
a
be ready.
headhunter calls, they don't wait. Like opportunity knocks, right? It doesn't like bang the door. If you don't hear the opportunity, it's gone. So Nilanshi, this will definitely help you as well. The other thing that you said, um, and I heard this also, and I follow this as well. Nilanshi and Shivam, your resume is not about what you've done. It's about what you can do for the company. So it's also future oriented, right? So you're not just highlighting your accomplishments, but also the job you want, not the job you have. Remember that. So awesome. All right. Ooh, I'm told I need to dumb it down, Erica. If my if I'm willing to take a lesser job, what do you say to Pilar?
That isn't so overqualified is what she's saying. That can be appropriate just because there can be concerns. You know, if you had a multi-million-dollar budget and this budget is $500, and if you oversaw a team of 50 people and this is 2 people, the concern will be, that you're going to get bored or that you won't stay very long.
Yes.
So that's the reason we do really want to speak to the role. And sometimes just culling some of those specific numbers can be helpful. Some of those numbers are actually limit your opportunities because they'll look for a cookie cutter match, right?
Yes.
So some of those, the number of direct reports, the exact budget, even industry, there are some things that even though recruiters like to see them, can actually limit your prospects. So sometimes it's better just to hold back on that and maybe not be so forthcoming. Just cut out some of those things. Though that can be a problem. Overqualified is different than age discrimination. A lot of times those two are conflated.
Yes.
And there's nothing to say that those accomplishments or those major feats that you were able to put through can't resurface at a later date, or even after you're hired, update your resume and put it on file with HR. So you might be considered for bigger, better things if you're interested, or if you're really not, then that's okay.
That's okay. Exactly. So hopefully that helps you, Pilar. Don't dumb it down. No matter what people say. Yes, you simplify it, but that's not the same as dumbing it down. I've been told by someone about a year ago, you should be reaching more people. You have good content. Maybe you should dumb it down to simplify it. I'm like, if you dumb it down, then you're assuming that the people are dumb. That's not.
Yeah, right.
Not the best approach. Sujoy, this question has been answered. To go and watch the replay about career change, because there's lots of moving parts in there and it's definitely possible. And I think the cover letter, which I'm not a huge fan of personally, but there's people out there who do read them, right? And there you can explain why you're looking for a change. And we're going to get back to the questions in a little bit. So now we talked about what do you do when you're starting a resume from scratch? What's the best length? How do we stand out? And now let's talk about this whole industry, right? Resume writers, you have good ones, you have not so good ones. You have like scam artists, unfortunately, that are like, this mill of producing.
Fear. Yeah.
And, service where they charge you big bucks, and then there'll be some nonsense resume which doesn't do the job that it's supposed to do. I'm personally, Erica, a fan of knowing how to write your resume yourself. And then if you don't like it or you're not good at it, then get help, because someone does this for a living. But I feel like you should know, it would be good to know how do you build your skeleton and build the foundation.
And there are so many resources available, right?
There's so many free resources available.
Yes.
Like, look at us talking about it today. This is stuff that people would pay, in a webinar for. And then it's not information that should be like private and like secretive.
Right.
So,
and it's not necessarily.
Exactly. So how does someone know, Erica, who's watching? They're like, how do I know that maybe it's time to outsource this?
I think the key is if you're noticing that it is sapping so much of your energy, because a big part of a job search is momentum, right? Yes. That you're excited about it. That's the other thing. If the document that you have, you're not excited to hand it over, then you need some help, whether it's asking a friend to look at it, whether it's, networking and trying to get some resume reviews on in that way, going to a career center. But it should be something that you're really excited to hand over, because like I said, this is going to be informing these networking conversations, these informational interviews, and the actual interview. So if you're not excited to hand it over, you're starting with kind of a funny first impression, like well, I'm not really happy with that. But no, the point is I'm super excited about this, this, and this. And if that's the case, then you're in good shape, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, Paula, you need to connect the dots, like you're saying. And anyone who's watching and they're like, you need to put your best foot forward, period. Basta. And if you're not able to do that alone, then get help, right? Always get help. And if your free resources online are not cutting it for you, then understand this might be time to get help.
Well, and then there's Craigslist, Upwork. If you're going for something like that, a lot of time you need to know what you're getting into. That's usually just edits.
Yeah.
Resume mills, usually they're like $250 or less per resume up front to the client. The writer is probably only getting about $25. So consider how much time and attention they're putting into your resume. Just, they've got a template. Some of the templates are so specific. They're to like the 100th place for line spacing.
Yes.
Like they cannot deviate, whether it's better for you or not. They cannot deviate from this template.
Yeah.
So they're stuck shoehorning your content in. Sometimes they have word change requirements. So to justify the expense in these mills. So they might actually make your content worse than when it came in. There won't be keywords because they rephrased it for you to feel like you got some benefit out of it, even if it might perform more poorly when subjected to applicant tracking.
Absolutely. I completely hear you. And I see a couple of really intelligent questions. Yes, Shrinu Babu, yes, you add volunteer experience 100%, and especially when it's related to skills that you want in a new job. I think they would value you. And I want to get to this question here by Shivam again. So many resume consultants say that you need to customize. This is such a hot topic, and there was a post a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn that got a lot of hate. I'll be honest, it's impractical working 60 hours a week. I don't have the time for every job. And I think I know what you're going to say, Erica, and I have views on this.
I'm so glad. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So there's a difference between an active search and a passive search. And it sounds like if somebody is working 60, 80 hours a week, they have to be in the passive search category. They don't necessarily have time to customize the resume for every single role. That's fine. Then you want to be really careful with your content strategy. It'd be very different from somebody with an active search. The passive search strategy would be very heavily on the keywords. You're going to have a broader branding statement at the top, and that's fine. You may want to use some of those recruiter focused metrics because you're going to be hoping that somebody finds you rather than you having to do the legwork and networking, because you simply won't have as much time. Then you might want to use the .doc format because recruiters prefer that. That gets through more applicant tracking systems. Those would be for a passive search. An active search, on the other hand, somebody has more time for networking. They can use these highly customized types of content. They can use some color if they're submitting it, in person, attaching it as an email, going to networking events, handing it over. And they are going to be spending a lot more time. They might get higher salary, higher title offers by doing that, potentially, because they're able to leverage multiple contacts, multiple offers that somebody who is kind of tied down during the week can't. But that's not to say that you still can't attract attention from a headhunter and not have to customize it day after day.
Yeah, 100%. So definitely take advantage of that. And I'm one of those people that believes in working hard. Working smart, not working hard, right? So if you've got one very good basis, which is your foundation resume, and it has everything in it, it's so much easier to customize it. Sometimes it's a little tweaking.
You can tweak though, not change the whole thing. You can flip a couple accomplishments to highlight the ones that are most relevant. Just change a couple of the, if you've got some soft skills
Yeah.
to speak to those EQ requirements in the job. Just tweak those couple of soft skills.
And use their language, and then it'll be much, much easier for you.
And that won't take long.
Exactly. And we have somebody who's watching who's like, this is an idea for branding yourself. So guys, read each other's comments. If you like somebody's comment, go and write to them, connect with them. This is a great way of networking as well. You're live. It's like a networking event. Yes, we're not face to face. Who cares? And this is an interesting question. How do you present a resume for someone who's self-employed?
Oh, yeah, this is great. So the thing to keep in mind if you are self-employed is to pick a title that reflects what you're doing day to day and reflects where you want to be. So this is the wonderful thing about being self-employed. You have a lot of control over that. So let's say I decided I wanted to be an accountant, which I won't ever, but in me running my own business.
Never say never.
Oh my gosh, I can promise you. Kudos to all of you out there with numbers sense, but that's not me. So let's say I wanted to become accountant. So I would highlight, the invoicing, the tax prep that goes into being a business owner. And I could even change my title to, accountant for Job Search Like a Pro, because I picked my title because I'm self-employed. Yes. Then if I said, okay, I want to go into marketing, same thing, marketing representative, I would talk about for my responsibilities, I would talk about, I did LinkedIn content to generate leads and whatever. And so it would be relevant to that role. So those are the wonderful things about being self-employed. Make sure you keep track of your metrics.
Yes.
So that's the toughest thing. You kind of go off the radar and you're like, I don't have to worry about it. Try to keep track, because when you go to transition back into corporate, they want to find out like, oh, is this someone just filling a gap? Or is this somebody who actually was able, is this a failed entrepreneur and that's why they're going corporate? No, I had significant responsibilities. I was responsible. I can leverage this into a corporate role because I haven't let my skills stagnate. And so to demonstrate that, you really do want to keep track of couple of clients, some metrics, so that you can have concrete accomplishments, concrete numbers when you're building out that experience.
Can't stress this enough. You guys, you're watching. Mental note is crap. It doesn't work. If you gotta write it down somewhere, oh man, I did this awesome thing, and the VP of the company went and like patted me on the back. Write it down. You're going to forget. We want to think, when it comes to resume, put it down and have a little brag. What is it called? Like a brag file. I call it my appreciation station. And it's got all the cool stuff in my little folder in Outlook. And when the time comes, slap it, slap it, very nicely presented. And they're like, oh, like this person definitely needs a raise or definitely gets the job or whatever. It's a great tactic. So great, fantastic. We have so many questions. I'm going to quickly go through them so we can get to the ones that have not been answered by our wonderful guest here. We talked about resume length, Kiran. You go and watch the replay. You'll definitely find it. And this is a popular question as well. So, you're definitely going to, so all of us, I see those repeated comments. So, and same Angad with how to make your resume stand out. That's literally the question, that we talked about. Face-to-face Hi, Adam in New York. Face-to-face opportunities, you have better, engagement. So it's not advantageous to give away the store. I am not a fan of posting my LinkedIn, my resume on LinkedIn either, Adam, because there's also plagiarism. And if you have a very cool resume, like I have a resume which has a tagline, it's different. It helped me to stand out. I don't want others to get that idea. So it's just, you're giving it away, everything, including the kitchen sink. So, and then we talked about future course of action. So where do we highlight a future course of action? Talk about it in your summary and your accomplishments where it's linked to what you want to do. Pooja, we had that as well. And then it's a great point from Niatu, who says, I have a relevant experience section, which allows the breakup of the chronology. So this is exactly, Pooja, this is an answer to your question. It's about making it easier for your reader to access your relevant experience on page 1. So think, if you guys have watched Jerry Maguire, help them to help you, right? Just imagine you're Tom Cruise in a bathroom right now, and you're just like, help them. Help me, help you. So just, you make your life easier. You're gold. Right, Erica? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, just getting it, highlighting the relevant stuff first, getting that front and center. That's the key takeaway. That's what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And Virginia, our friend, says great advice on looking for help when you're less thrilled about how your career marketing collateral feels. Death by wordsmithing. It's funny, Virginia. People will not think twice about getting expensive shoes or 4 months of Netflix. But if you combine that, sometimes you can get a brain, the right brains and hire that person. And you're like, you're not good at it, then why not get help? But I still think you should know how to write your own resume, at least have your foundation. And then there are options, right?
Well, and sometimes if you do hire someone, they give you that framework that it's easy to update, right? Then now
Yes.
you know what you should be doing and you see it. They told you the points to customize and you're like, I got it now. I can
Yes.
run with this for a good
Yes.
5-10 years.
Yes, yes. So Nadeem, you've been recently hired. Congrats in one of the most prestigious investment banks with good pay. Shall I update my resume and look for more? First of all, Nadeem, you're on LinkedIn. So if you go to your profile and you go to your activity section, this comment is visible. There is a reason why a lot of my viewers are watching on Facebook and YouTube. Be careful in case you have a nosy person in your prestigious investment bank watching. They'll be like, oh, Nadeem looking for a change. Just be careful with that. Yeah, update it. It's a great idea to update your resume when you start because you anyway update LinkedIn, right? We are more prone to updating LinkedIn because it's public, but definitely update your resume as well.
It should all be
Um,
current too.
Current, exactly, exactly. Do you think about like Erica? Do you have any advice on like resume builders or templates?
I don't like them.
No, I don't like them either. They're very
I don't
cookie
like them.
cutter, Nikhil. Very cookie cutter, meaning one size fits all type of thing.
Yes, I do. I think it hurts people more than helps people. I think it really just builds your content from a raw perspective. Take a look at it. And then if you do look at, resume books or examples and you like a look of something, you can still kind of replicate that without forcing your resume into this weird spot. The other thing is a lot of those, like on Canva, a lot of those templates do not play well with the applicant tracking systems.
No.
The data mining functionality doesn't, even if it looks similar to something that somebody built in Word or because the way that it's set up won't data mine. So I wouldn't recommend doing that if at all possible. It's better to have a unique document. The other thing is the hiring managers have seen those templates a million times. If you wanting to stand out, that's the last thing that you want to do.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Then there's a question here from Hussein who says, in many cases, a CV, by the way, CV resume, please, we're talking about the same thing. We're not going to get into the semantics of it today. The CV does not reflect the scientific and practical reality like ethics, behavior, skills, which Hussein typically you see in interviews, right? Are there any kind of questions during the interview? Yes, there are. It's a slightly off topic. If we have time today, we're going to address this. But yes, you can ask behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when, and then ask about things like failure, not just success, but when things didn't go well, because you'll get a
That's
great
for
idea.
specific examples and
Specific
anecdotes.
examples. Ask them for
Yeah.
two, and that will show you, character as well. And then I saw a question that I want to go back to. So Shivam's really engaged. He's asking a lot. So if I follow branding and list everything I'm proud of, it still doesn't get traction. But I've tailored my resume and I've passed the ATS. It becomes rather mechanical. What's the balance there? What do you suggest?
Yeah, there definitely has to be a balance. So you can mention those keywords and so that it still will perform well when subjected to an applicant tracking system. But that's not the be all end all. It has to have that as a foundation. Like if somebody only scores like a 15% match for a role, it's not really going to help your standing because there probably will be 6-10 candidates who are top contenders who will score well. So you still need to pay some attention to that, but it shouldn't be catered directly to that because ultimately the human is the decision maker, right? They're going to be the person in the room. So the summary is where you spend your time and attention on the personal branding. You can still have a core qualifications, keywords section to make sure you're getting those hits. And then you can still provide some context, some sense of mission or story within the responsibilities and accomplishments, briefly, concisely, and then still mention those metrics and those keywords that will have you score well. So you definitely can strike a balance and weave those two together.
Yes, perfect. Makes perfect sense. And it's not that hard striking a balance. Just takes a little bit of practice, right? And
It takes some
LinkedIn,
time and attention. Yeah, right. And I get, like as Virginia was saying, the wordsmithing trap, a lot of people do start spinning their wheels. So that's when you want to ask for help. Even if it's just another set of eyes, what am I getting stalled on? Just help me decide this or this, and then be able to move on. So you don't lose that momentum, lose that energy that you need for the job search.
Yes, perfect. Makes perfect sense. And yes, you will get a recording. It's in my profile. It'll be there forever. So just take advantage of it and watch it again. So, all right. So it's a very specific question. You'll definitely get help, Srinivasan, if you watch the replay, because we talked a lot about, we're not going into personalized, like specific questions here, which are only to do with you and nobody else. But I'm going to do a quick recap because I think we've covered a lot. So for anyone who's watching us, this is the summer edition. If you've just joined us, welcome. This is the summer edition of Resumes. I did a winter edition with Virginia back in January. Go and watch that as well. If you're really, really keen on getting this right and doing this yourself, you can just, take massive action and make it happen. So yeah, we talked about how to make a resume that gives you the interview. And the first thing we said was, how do you start from scratch? And Erica shared 3 points. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about after you watch the replay. We talked about the length, do's and don'ts, and what are the best ways to help you to stand out from the rest of the resumes on the pile. And how do you know when it's time to get help if you're not able to get traction, you're not able to do things yourself? And how do you know what's really good and what's not good? And we didn't cover this, obviously, but if you want to work with a resume writer, they should ideally there should be some engagement happening on LinkedIn as well. At least they should have a presence, like a profile, right? And one of the things you can see is testimonials, because those are real. Very, very rare to see fake testimonials on LinkedIn because you can see who wrote it. You can always get in touch with that person saying, I see that you referred. No, I didn't refer Erica. Oh, you didn't recommend her. So that'll help you to make sure that you are not taken advantage of, because let's face it, we live in a world where, folks take advantage of vulnerable people. And it's your job to not become a victim to that and not, be someone who doesn't know that and then complain later because you're a grown-up and you need to make your own decisions.
I would add too, if somebody
Yes.
has been writing resumes full-time for years, that's their livelihood. And if they are getting bad reviews, they're not getting referrals, they're not getting business, they're going to go out of business. Somebody doing it as gig work on the side, or if they just started because they are having a hard time getting a job, so they're like, well, I might as well edit someone else's resume while I'm doing mine, then those people aren't as invested in making sure they're updated in the careers industry. So that can be one thing too to vet. Yes. And then also asking them, do you have any strategies to address whatever concerns you might have about your work history? And then are you on board with that, right? Having an actual conversation with the writer can also help you decide, okay, this person's worth partnering with, or this is just a customer service line and I don't actually know who's going to be touching my resume or what they're going to do to it.
And it's such a personal service, guys. You don't want to be talking to a bot or a customer service person for whom you're just a number and a source of income. Like, it's a job. It's just a job. I personally think that there's a lot of those lately, Tegan. I completely agree. So there's a question here which I find fascinating, and Erica, I want your views on it. Can you identify a fake resume and it's fabricated without speaking to the person? How do you know there's made up stuff in there?
So that it can be really difficult to tell. Sometimes it just doesn't seem realistic, or it can be inflated numbers, like where if you're in the industry, you're like, that doesn't make sense, getting that amount of of traction on a new website. That doesn't make sense. Or the education, the schools are one of the often people use that to establish credibility, but you can check it. You can call the school.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is even though a resume is a marketing document and the application is a legal document, so people are like, it's okay to be a little looser on the resume. It's not worth losing somebody's credibility because they will research your background, right? And that's something that's going to follow you for years. Not that any networking kind of situation is exponential for better and for worse.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You wouldn't want to risk that. In terms of identifying it, yeah, a lot of times it's just there's a disconnect. There's something that's not quite right. Or when they start digging in the interview setting, people can't explain how they got to those numbers. They can't justify, how they were able to achieve certain things in a short time. There are red flags on the other side. Also, if somebody makes executive level at a very young age, that in itself is a red flag. Like, did they receive this position through nefarious means? Was it nepotism? Was it favoritism?
Exactly.
Or did they self-anoint with their own business? So then that's a lot harder to justify in a corporate environment going in. So I think are some tells.
There are ways. And I'm guessing this is coming from the point of view of a recruiter, not from the candidate. So obviously for a candidate, this is a very bad idea. If you guys Google CEO fired 20 years after being in the same company because he had lied about his graduation, it happens. So it's a stupid thing to do and it's not worth it. Because the damage to the reputation is permanent, and those 20 years are not worth it. And to add to everything that Erica said, when things look exaggerated, too much spice, completely out of whack, there's human red flags, antenna that go up for sure. So all right, I'm just going to finish everything. Nikhil, I cannot answer that. I'm sorry, it's not in my wheelhouse. And integrity is everything. If you don't have integrity, honestly, what else is there? Character, right? At the end of the day. So fantastic. So with that said, definitely watch the replay if you are just joining us, like our friend Nitesh here. Welcome. And it's time for us to say bye. And so I gave a quick summary of everything that we talked about. And if you're interested in reaching out to Erica, I highly recommend, if you want some, fun and on topic and no fluff points on LinkedIn when it comes to job search. It's not just resumes, but Erica's, it's not a one-trick pony. I mean, she does more than that, right? So take advantage and follow Erica on LinkedIn. And of course, her very cool sounding website, jobsearchlikeapro.com. And if you're interested, you don't have to. Feel free to subscribe to my newsletter, superchargeyourself.com/newsletter, because I share those as well once a month. So with that said, I want to say a big thank you to Erica for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, everybody.
My pleasure. It was 7 a.m, taking out time, for all of us here. So big applause to Erica. And so thank you all for being here today. It always makes a difference when it's a live audience. The energy is palpable, right? And please join me next week at the same time. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a guest. I don't have a topic.
But it'll be good.
Hopefully it'll be very good, and there'll be hopefully there's a surprise element in there as well. We cover all things which are practical related to careers, and if you guys have specific questions, feel free to bring them, but I try to address as many as possible and also on topic. So we help people who have specially come for that topic. So with that said, thanks everyone. Take care of yourselves and see you next time. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you, Sonal.